Greetings and welcome to another Village Soup interview. I'm Dan Dunkel, News Director for Village Soup, and with me in the studio today is Bethany Allgrove.
Hello.
And you're with the Maine Coalition for Vaccine Choice.
Correct.
Well, thank you for being here today, first of all.
Thank you for the time.
All right. Well, can you tell me first about your coalition, about how many people are involved in it and what's its mission?
Sure. The coalition right now has about 2,000 members across the state of Maine, so it's relatively large. And our mission is to just have a grassroots movement where we can work towards making sure that we have options for vaccine choice in Maine. It's obviously a very big, broad topic that a lot of people have very strong feelings about, and our goal is just to ensure that everyone has the options and the choices to make personally for their families.
Now, your group has expressed some opposition to LD 798, which is a bill that would eliminate the religious and philosophical exemption from vaccines for parents. Can you explain why you guys oppose this bill?
Sure. The bill is very immoral. It's wrong. It is taking away a fundamental right of Americans, and certainly we're talking about Maine specifically for this bill, and it's targeting and segregating our school children, and that just is, not a good place for us to be moving for our state or for America.
Can you expound exactly what makes it immoral and what rights would you say it's taking away?
Well, it takes away bodily autonomy. It takes away the personal and private and religious options for families who just have an alternative view of how they either want all medical decisions to be made, within the family, within the specific doctor or provider that they work for, and losing the right to choose medical interventions is wrong.
What do you say to people who have brought up the issue of the fact that, at one time we were seeing the elimination of some of these diseases, especially like measles and mumps, and now that people are opting out of vaccinations, we're starting to see outbreaks of measles in Washington State and now in New York?
Well, I would first ask where the proof is that the outbreaks are from a wider range of exemptions, where we can see that increased exemptions are actually showing an increase in some of these diseases and these outbreaks, because the data doesn't point to that. I would say that one thing that's really careful to consider is that these vaccines are not 100% effective. So for example, the pertussis vaccine, it has a 70%, it's proven to have a 70% rate of effectiveness. So 30% that are vaccinated fully with the DTaP, which is for pertussis, they aren't protected. So blaming an outbreak on a 5% of school children that may choose to go on a different schedule, the data doesn't support that.
So you bring up this 5%. Explain to me, where is it only 5% in your view that are not getting the vaccination?
It is. It's not my view. The CDC data shows that Maine has over 95% vaccinated rate for kindergartners.
Okay, so since I don't have a person from the other side of this, I also looked up some of the information on that. And so I have the New York Times is reporting that vaccination rates are down worldwide. And the Portland Press-Herald reports that Maine has one of the highest opt-out rates in the nation on the basis of religious and philosophical reasons. The Maine schools have reported dangerously low vaccination rates, and they talk about this herd immunity at 95%. So basically, unless 95% of students are vaccinated, we could lose this herd immunity. And so the Portland Press-Herald reported, or actually the Maine CDC, I guess, reported 31 public schools in Maine are reporting 15% or higher rates of unvaccinated kindergarten students. So in those particular populations, it is less than 95%.
It is. If you have a kindergarten class where there are 3 students And one student went to kindergarten when he was 4.5 and is still waiting to be old enough for that last DTaP. He's actually considered unvaccinated. Until you have finished that complete schedule, you fall into the unvaccinated rate. So that school with 3 kindergartners where 2 are old enough to be fully vaccinated, 1 is simply waiting, they had 33% unvaccinated rate. That is a significant number, but it doesn't reflect the truth.
Okay. And so do you consider it like a coincidence that the measles outbreaks have been reported?
I don't. I think that if you really drill down into where these reports are, you will see that no one has been able, well, no, I shouldn't say been able, no one has said that these are wild strains of the measles. And so, that begs the question, where are they coming from? I also think that, that's a big problem with this bill because it doesn't have any proof behind what they're trying to do. We don't have proof that says high vaccination rates will give us a lack of these diseases. It's never happened. These vaccines are not 100% effective. So with 100% vaccination, you will not get 100% immunity. Again, I'm just sticking with the pertussis because that's a number I have in my head, but if 30% of the vaccinated are unprotected, it doesn't matter how many more people you vaccinate. If the vaccine has a failure rate at 30%, it's just not going to increase any protection.
Now, is part of your group's concern about any kind of health or safety issues with vaccines? Are you guys concerned about what ill effects are you worried about from vaccines?
I mean, that's a personal answer for everyone and anyone in the group, or anyone who doesn't just only follow exactly what's on the schedule. People come to their decisions about how and when to vaccinate their children through so many different avenues and reasons. The ingredients, are pretty significant and something that certainly is worrisome to many parents. The numbers of vaccines, the amounts that are given at once. But so many people also believe in the ability for the body to heal within itself. And when we're talking about things like the chicken pox, many families, they may have all of their other vaccines, but they just feel like the chicken pox might be something that is not anything to worry about and would prefer to opt out of that one alone. And they're considered in the number of fully unvaccinated. And so, again, it's this bill seems to be trying to find a problem that it can be the solution for, but there's no problem.
Are there specific ingredients that you guys have concerns about?
I wouldn't say, that we have a list that as our coalition we say, yikes. But I think a lot of parents, when you see that there are glyphosate, polysorbate 80, there is aluminum in vaccines. We hear a lot about trace amounts and things being taken out, but if you drill down and look at it, a lot of these chemicals are still in them. Aborted fetal tissues are what they're cultured in. Human DNA does remain. Bovine, porcine, cow, pig, monkey tissues. So many religions, so many people really have truly fundamental concerns, rightfully so, about having these ingredients, these combinations, these medical procedures injected.
Okay. What do you see as the motivations for the medical establishment, the doctors and the scientists who come out and said, everybody should be vaccinated?
That's a tricky question because I think that I do believe that the goal of this bill and the goal of everyone talking about this bill is absolutely the health of our children. I don't think anyone would dispute that. I think that the concern is that the way that it's being approached with a forced medical procedure, taking away our rights, and ignoring the impact that that's going to have on so many families. Honestly, I'm not sure where the motivation is for the medical professionals, and maybe it's just that they don't realize the impact that they're talking about. It's the last number that I read was about 8,000 kids in Maine that will be thrown out of school. And that's really devastating. It's devastating to so many families, and it's targeting. I don't understand the motivation to target a small population of school children and segregating them when the adult vaccination rate in Maine is under 20%. And so these children are around their unvaccinated adults every day. So specifically targeting the children, I truly don't understand the motivation behind that. And I think that, unfortunately, it's become such a topic that's so hard to discuss that you're either for or against, and you can't have a conversation with someone on the other side to hear, maybe why they feel this way. Why do you feel like it's needed for everyone? Why do you not feel like it's needed for everyone? So it's hard to find what the motivation is for the medical professionals.
I hear that about a lot of topics these days, that they're hard to discuss.
It's really unfortunate. So I appreciate you letting me come in to talk about this.
Oh, well, great. Maybe you could talk too. I think one of the things that I've been talking to friends about with this is I always feel like, some of these issues that we have a lot of debate about hit that crossroads of two different beliefs that we all hold. So, talk about the tension between personal rights and the need to protect the larger community, because I think that's a piece of what's creating this.
That's a really good question. And I hope that I answer it in the way that I answer it, so obviously tell me if I don't. But I think that the problem with that is when we talk about, where does your right to infringe on someone else's because you want to be unvaccinated? We know that's what the concern is. And I go back to, this bill doesn't solve that. This bill has no proof that taking the 5% of kindergartners, the 5% of school children in Maine that aren't fully vaccinated, increasing those numbers to maybe, get us to 98%, because there will still be medical exemptions, that there's no proof that that will increase any protection, because again, we have vaccines that are failing, we have adults that are unvaccinated, and we have those who are unable to be vaccinated. They, still have the same risk of catching and spreading any of these as an unvaccinated child. And so I think that looking at the unvaccinated as some kind of harm to society or throwing them out of school because they are contagious is very dehumanizing. And I think that it's a very unfair target for our children. And so my answer to what about protecting everyone is that this bill does not prove that. There's been no proof in the proponents of the bill to come back and say, once we've increased rates, we won't have these diseases. I mean, just last month in California, so they do have this same bill came through and was passed. There is nothing but medical exemptions allowed. There's a high school in LA, 98% vaccinated rate. And outbreak of pertussis, 30 of the 30 cases were vaccinated children. There's no proof that targeting our kids in Maine and pulling out a few more percentage points to get more vaccinated, that's not going to provide any additional protection to the community. The proof's not there.
Okay. And what's the timeline on this? There's been I understand, a very lively public hearing on this bill. Do you know when they're going to vote on it or when the next step takes place?
I don't. It's very interesting. So it was a long day. I was there for 13 hours with my 6-month-old. We stood to testify at 10:40 p.m. It was a long day, but I met some really incredible, wonderful families, and I feel so great to be part of this movement to speak to others about the freedoms and the rights that we're working for in Maine. But all that to say, they usually announce when the work session will be after a hearing, and it hasn't been announced yet. So we don't know. We don't know what the timeline is. The work session will be announced publicly, of course, and so we're waiting on that, and then that's when the first vote will happen after the work session.
As people are viewing this is March 28th, so maybe it will have happened by the time some people view this, but
oh, maybe,
interested
yeah,
to
that's
know.
right. The hearing was on the 13th, so it's been a couple weeks.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
All right, and thank you for watching. As always, I say at the end, you can watch all of our video interviews at knox.villagesoup.com or waldo.villagesoup.com, and if you go up to the tab at the top of the screen that says Watch, you can scroll down to Behind the News, and you can find all of our videos there. If you want to email any questions, send them into news@villagesoup.com. Thanks a lot for watching.